In this episode of How'd You Get Here, we interview neurologist and MS specialist Dr. Susan Anzalone. It's a great story of how someone started a second career and pursued their dreams. I hope you enjoy it. So I'm excited to have Dr. Susan Anzalone, who is the medical director and founder of the Colorado MS Center. She's also a neurologist. So that's pretty interesting. Thank you so much for being on our show. How'd you get here?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, one, to get the MD title, that takes a lot of work, right? I mean, it's not super simple, and you probably have to spend a lot of money, and you have to go through a lot of schooling. And you did that, and then you decided to open up your own medical practice and pursue that. So there's a lot here that I'd like to unpack and understand. But before we go there, I kind of want to hear a little bit more about you. I want to hear your story, where you grew up, what kind of family life you had, and then kind of that journey through, school all the way to, where you are now.
Okay. Born and raised in Nebraska.
Okay.
When I was 1, my mom, my dad, and I actually moved to San Francisco for about a year.
Why was that?
My dad was working for the IRS. He's an accountant.
Okay.
So I got a little taste of San Francisco, which interestingly, I never got out of my system until maybe recently. But I've always loved San Francisco. So then we moved back to Nebraska when I was about 2. And stayed there through 6th grade when we moved to Denver.
Wow, okay. So you were 12 years old, essentially, something like that?
Yeah, something like
when
that.
You moved to Denver? So you've kind of been here a long time,
I feel kind of like a native.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then same reason you moved to Colorado because of Dad's job?
Well, my parents divorced when I was young. Probably I was 7-ish. I'm not even sure. And then a few years later, my mom and I moved out here to Denver. Her sister had already moved to Denver, so we followed in her footsteps. And my mom was working for a restaurant chain at the time, and I started school here and started my life in Denver.
That's awesome. What part of town did you grow up in?
We grew up near Crestmore Park.
Okay.
Or I grew up near Crestmore Park. And then we eventually moved down to Littleton. I went to Littleton High.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, my mother-in-law went to Littleton High.
No way.
My kids are going to go to Littleton High.
Nice. Now it's really supposed to be a good school.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's smaller for that area.
Yeah.
So that's what's good. Okay, so then you started going to Littleton High. And were you like the cool kid? Were you like Captain Popular, like cheerleader, like captain and all that kind of stuff? Or
definitely not a cheerleader. No. I ended up meeting some amazing people. Just got a really close-knit group of friends in high school and had a blast.
Nice.
Friends with a lot of them still today, which is awesome. It's been good to reconnect with them. I moved back to Denver in 2015 and have made some reconnections, which has been fun. But high school is great. I know for some people it's traumatic, and I'm sorry for that because it's an awkward time. And I feel like now kids have a really hard time and just growing up and going to school and going to high school. But back then it was pretty easy and pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you have any interest? I mean, when you were younger, were you like operating on your friends or like trying to like look inside their brains or,
No, but I do have a picture of myself when I was about 3 with a fake stethoscope, taking my grandpa's, listening to his heart. I love that photo.
That's like one of those like ones that you have that you're like, see, look at.
I know.
Ever since I was a baby, I was into this stuff.
Which is interesting because I actually did not end up going to med school until I was 33.
Oh, wow. So is that older then?
That's older. Usually you go right out of college, so probably 22, 23 maybe. And I, had about 10 years in between where I did something entirely different. So it might have been like a a latent interest that kind of resurfaced later in life.
Okay. Interesting. So, what did you do then? So after high school,
went to CU Boulder.
Stayed in Colorado.
Stayed in
Because you're like, it's beautiful, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't want to like go out of state and spend $20,000 a year on tuition when I really had no idea what I wanted to do. So
Smart.
Stayed in Colorado. I loved Boulder. Went up there for 4 years. I majored in sociology. I was interested in sociology. I thought I might become a lawyer, so I had an emphasis in criminology. Loved taking women's studies courses, so have always been a big proponent of, civil rights, equal rights. So I think that has persisted to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I took a really interesting class up in Boulder called Deviance in U.S. Society. So
what does that mean?
We just studied deviant behavior and why it occurs. And
really?
Yeah.
That's like a thing, huh?
It's a thing. It was a cool class. Yeah.
So why is there deviant behavior? What's the story?
God, this was a long time ago. Probably because it's fun.
Yeah, it's like, hello, being deviant, it's risky.
It's fun to break the rules, right?
So then college was a breeze for you. You did 4 years. Did you figure out what you wanted to do?
No, didn't at all. College was a breeze. Also, great time. Made amazing friends. We get together. There's a pretty close-knit group of about 10 of us that went to college together, and we get together once a year, once every couple years. We're getting together in April in LA.
Nice.
On the beach. A friend just bought a house on the beach, so we're all just going to go reconnect, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Last year we went to Sayulita, Mexico together.
That's awesome. There's something about old friends that's like you can't buy.
No.
There's this like, I have a close friend still who's, from high school, and it's just like, he's made it on to be successful, which is really great. And I've been successful, so it's been kind of fun. I have some friends from high school that are kind of like losers still, and you're like, meh, sorry. But the ones that have known you that long and that, have you kind of like grown up together and you have success, it's kind of fun to share in that and then have all the memories of like, oh, remember when we snuck out and,
True. And it's nice that they still like you, even though they really know you.
Right. Yeah. It's like, hey, I know you. So then what were you interested in college? Like what did you decide to do afterwards? So
interestingly, near the end of my 4 years at Boulder, I took a class called biological psychology. And I was blown away. We read a book by Oliver Sacks. He's a pretty famous neurologist. He's now passed away. But he wrote a book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Have you heard about that one?
No.
Oh, you got to read it. So it's written by a neurologist, but it's written for the layperson. So it's really it's these really amazing stories.
Is it that like the imagery where like it's like an old lady in a chair, but it also looks like a young lady with a hat on? No?
That might be. There have been a few different book covers. Yeah. But he just tells stories about interesting neurologic patients that he's had.
Okay.
And his theory as to why it's happening. And
can you explain a little bit, like what does that mean, neurologic?
Neurologic. So, we've got all sorts of different systems in our body. So we've got the cardiovascular system, which is your heart and your blood vessels. And you've got, the neurologic system is basically, you've got brain and spinal cord, which make up your central nervous system. And then you've got all those nerves that come off of your spinal cord. That's called your peripheral nervous system. You've got nerves that control your organs, like your heart and your lungs, and that's called the autonomic nervous system. The nervous system is just a collection of nerves in your body. And so a neurologist is someone who, specializes in treating diseases of that system.
Okay.
Right.
Look at that. Yeah. Education there.
Yeah, and to go even deeper, I specialize in treating a disease that only affects the central nervous system, which is multiple sclerosis.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get to that. But so did you have siblings growing up? You were an only child?
Only.
Okay, so you were like the princess, the queen. Like you ruled the roost.
Oh, did I? I don't know.
Your mom worked. I mean, did you share time with your parents when you were younger? Did you go back and forth? Or
mostly my mom raised me. Yep.
Yeah.
And I saw when I lived in the same city as my dad, saw him a couple times a week. We would do usually one of two things together. We would either go to the arcade and play video games.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and I got really good at Ms. Pac-Man. Or we would go to the bookstore and just spend hours at the bookstore.
Really?
Yeah, which I still do to this day. Go to Tattered Cover and just read and buy books. And
Thank goodness there's Tattered Cover. I mean, Amazon putting Borders and Barnes & Noble out of business.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember back in the 90s, we would go sit in a Borders or Barnes & Noble for hours. They got chairs and just hang out. Yeah.
Yep. But mostly my mom raised me.
Yeah. Okay. So only child. So, and then did you have just a knack for like education or learning or things like that? Like you enjoyed it. You didn't hate school, but you just kind of did your thing. Yeah.
I think I just love to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's been a persistent theme throughout my life. Anything new.
Yeah.
Just pick it up. So when I moved to San Francisco, well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I'll let you drive the boat here.
Hey, let me drive the boat.
Sorry, I just got back from Mexico, so I'm like in water boat mode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you took a class that was extremely interesting to you.
Yes. I would stay home I was not the type to stay home on Friday, Saturday nights in college.
Yeah. You're going to arcades.
I was out.
And
we were going to what was called The Hill. They still have The Hill in Boulder, but
nice.
There was some really amazing music at the Fox and
Boulder Theater.
Yeah, but we were mostly stuck to The Hill. Tulagi's Fox, Taylor's had live music. But this class kept me home on the weekends. I would stay home and read this class because it was fascinating. It was the merging of biology and psychology and why we do what we do and mental illness. And I just found it totally fascinating. But I was like, oh, it's too late. I'm already graduating and I'm not going to go to med school or something ridiculous like that. I don't want to be in school for the next 4 years plus residency. So,
right.
Yeah, I just, graduated.
And what'd you graduate with?
I have a BA in sociology.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what did you want to do with that?
I, honest to God, had no idea. I actually, right after college, I moved to Italy.
You're like, peace out. I'm looking for some pasta.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you went to go find yourself in Italy or?
Well, I had studied abroad in Italy during my junior year.
Okay.
And I loved it. And I had a really hot Italian boyfriend back then.
Venice.
I'm kidding. No, I did. But so I moved back and we reconnected and I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll just live here for the rest of my life and figure out what I'm going to do. I ended up teaching English. I worked in a couple stores selling random touristy items. I ended up working at an Irish pub as a bar back. Yeah.
In Italy?
In Italy.
Oh, nice.
In Florence. Mostly Florence, yeah. Yeah. I also lived in Milan and Siena. But
so you're just living the dream, right? Pretty laid back, working some jobs, making some money. Italy.
Right.
I mean.
Eating pasta.
Gelato.
Mm.
Oh, I can imagine. I've seen some food shows that they go to these 200-year-old gelato places in Italy. And I'm like, oh man.
I have, when I'm there, I eat gelato every day. You have to.
It's
and you get skinny. It's the weirdest thing.
What is that?
I don't know. I think it's all the walking.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So Italy, and then what?
So I lasted about 6 months, came back, and moved to San Francisco, which is where everybody from Boulder, we all graduated college, and it was mass exodus.
It's kind of like the San Francisco. Boulder's like the San Francisco of Colorado.
It is.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So I moved to San Francisco with a couple good girlfriends, and plus a lot of our friends were already there. And I got my very first job at a big advertising agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you went from sociology major.
Which you can do anything with,
That's
apparently.
Right. The psychology and all that stuff is beneficial for marketing.
Yeah.
So then a big ad agency. And you were just
I started as a receptionist.
Okay, just taking calls, getting coffee.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fun. We had some fun accounts. Made my way up to I think account coordinator and then project. I don't even remember. But, tried to climb the ladder. I was more on the project side, which is where you're kind of the liaison between the creatives and the client. So did that and then one of our clients wanted this brand new thing called an intranet.
that darn intranet.
It was brand new. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of that. And so I got together with our IT person, and we had our very first book called HTML. And I read that thing cover to cover, and he and I built them a website that was for internal use. And I just thought, this is so fun. Like, I can write code, and then something appears on the screen. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I left advertising, and I ended up switching gears and doing website development.
Really?
Yeah. So I did that from like 90. Well, when did I move to San Francisco? Must have been 95. Did that.
So you were there, like that was years. Like the heyday.
Oh, it was
in San Francisco.
Heyday.
Yeah, of the internet.
Oh,
like
yeah.
95 to 2001, you know?
It was the best. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Like Wired Magazine was just starting, and they'd have these huge parties, and the whole rave scene was going on, and it was just fun. Yeah. I mean, I was there from like 95 to 06.
Okay.
So.
Nice.
Yeah. Good times.
So, wow. So you went from Italy to advertising to coding.
Yes. And I wrote all code by hand. You know, now we've got Squarespace and Wix and WordPress, and it's like drag and drop WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
I was writing everything by hand and building these elaborate tables to, place your images exactly where you wanted them.
Right.
And yeah.
Wireframing and all this stuff.
Yeah. And then near the end, I learned a lot of, JavaScript and a little Perl script and some style sheets. But then I left that world.
Yeah. When did you leave that world?
2001. The whole bubble burst.
Right.
My company, about 40% of us got laid off, which actually was really interesting for a lot of us. We all had to figure out what to do with our lives. So like, one of my colleagues opened up a really cute little boutique in San Francisco. Another one has become a really amazing photographer. I'm trying to think what else everybody else has done. Everyone just did kind of different things. Some people stayed, and continued to write code or continued to be graphic designers.
Right.
But it really forced us to do a little bit of soul searching and say, what do I want to do with my life?
There's no security in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so interesting. So the bubble burst.
Yep.
And then what?
So I was around 29 at that point, and I did my soul searching, and I thought, I've always been interested in neuroscience. I've always been interested in the brain, and, like a Time magazine article would come out about the year of the brain, and I would pick it up and read it to cover and just thought, this is cool. Like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. But I don't know. I mean, it's too late to go to med school. I'm 29, almost 30. So I emailed a bunch of doctors at UCSF and just said, hey, I'm really good with computers. I know how to work a database. I can pick up anything. I'm quick. Anybody need a research assistant? And so one of them wrote me back and said, yes, I desperately need someone to fix my databases and to run our MRI machine. And I was like, and recruit patients for a trial. And I was like, I can do that. Sure. So I got a job there at the VA in San Francisco, which literally has the best piece of land in all of San Francisco. It's on a cliff overlooking the ocean, and you can see the Golden Gate Bridge.
Really?
Yeah. And so I worked there for 2 years, and I learned all about science and how to conduct research and how to write papers. And we were studying schizophrenia and bipolar, and we were measuring volumes of a little part of the brain called the hippocampus, which one of its functions is to retain memories. So, I kind of got my feet wet there, and I thought, I can do this. I love it, and I think I could actually go to med school. This is crazy.
And then you went to med school.
Yeah. Well, 4 years later, I went to med school. Yeah, it took a while. I had to do 2 years of pre-med.
Okay.
Even though I already had my BA, I had to do 2 years of sciences.
Okay.
So did that. I had to take the MCAT, had to apply, So
it was a process.
Oh, huge.
Was there any point during that where you just were going to give up and be like, this is too hard?
Never. No. The way I approached it, I just said, okay, just do baby steps. So do one thing. So what's the first thing you need to do? You need to take your science classes. Well, what's the first science class you need to take? Chemistry. So take chemistry and see how it goes. So I took chemistry. Fine. I loved it. I thought it was fun and got an A. And I thought, okay, next step, take the rest of the classes. So did that, And then I just said to myself, if you can just pass every hurdle along the way, don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Right.
Just, pass each hurdle. And then, if you make it, great. And if you don't, you'll be steered in another direction. And it just kept, it just worked out. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I always tell people, especially, January just ended. And I always tell people, if there's anything that you want to achieve or you want, you have a goal or something that you want to, hit, just work your way back, right? Like you write down where you are, right? And then write down where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And then just what are the steps to get there? Right. It's like even just making small changes, a lot of diet and exercise, right? It's like, man, if you just incorporate more greens into your diet, like just eat one salad a week, and then work your way up, right? Then maybe next week you have 2 salads, Right. But it's like sometimes we look at these insurmountable things, like these huge tasks, and we're like, and we get discouraged. We try to bite off more than we can chew, and then we get discouraged quickly and quit. But really, I like that idea of just, all right, I want to go to med school. I want to, become a doctor. These are the things I have to do. Let me just take one class, and then if I pass that, then I'll keep going. So then you just kept going. You kept crushing it.
Kept going.
And then how many years of school did you have to complete total?
Oh, can I count preschool?
Well, as far as to get your MD title.
Well, so most pre-med. People just do, 4 years of college and then they go to med school. I did 4 years of college, then I had 2 years of pre-med, post-baccalaureate, post-bac pre-med, 4 years of med school, and then you do 4 years of residency for neurology. Every residency is different depending on your specialty. And then I did an additional year of training, which is called a fellowship, which is super subspecialized training, and I did that in multiple sclerosis.
Wow. So 10 years, 11 years of school.
Yeah, a lot. It's a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the brain, that was kind of all that you're interested in. Yeah. And that's what got you into MS, essentially, because that's like the myelin sheath and...
Yeah, so... I knew I wanted to be a neurologist. A lot of people go to med school and they have no idea what kind of doctor they want to be. Right. I knew going in, I'm going to med school so that I can become a neurologist. I didn't necessarily know I was going to become an MS doctor until I had my first MS patient. And that was when I was a medical student and I was doing a month. You can do a month away from your medical school. So I went to medical school at Loyola in Chicago. And I decided I wanted to do a month at UCSF in San Francisco because ultimately I wanted to end up back in San Francisco. And so I flew out there and I did a month working in the wards at the main UCSF hospital at Parnassus. And I met my very first MS patient who was she was around 20, I think, 20-year-old young lady. And she couldn't walk because she had a lesion on her spinal cord. And I just was like totally taken aback by her. And I felt like I could relate to her because she was young and she was active. She loved to be outdoors and she was a surfer and she was super cool. And I just went, and I was a student, I just went and saw her every day and really connected with her and wanted to help her. And unfortunately, we had to give her a brand new diagnosis of MS and, started her on treatment. And that is really what ignited, I think, the passion within me of this is who I want to treat, people like her, and this is the disease that I want to treat. And at the time, there was a lot of exciting stuff going on in the MS world. Lots of new treatments and therapies, which were much more effective than what we had in the past. And so that's really what got me going. And then throughout my residency, I just sought out opportunities to, work in MS clinics and treat more and more MS patients. And then I eventually did decide I would do one additional year of fellowship, and I ended up going to back to UCSF for that.
Nice.
And interestingly, I won't tell you the whole story, but on my very last day of my fellowship, which was the very last day of all of my medical training, she was the last patient in the clinic. So she was my very first MS patient of my training and the very last patient of my training. So I think it was divine intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wow, that's really cool. Having that focus or knowing what you wanted to do, I'm sure helped you a lot as far as all the courses that you took and spending time and volunteering in places and being around MS patients, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that must have been pretty beneficial then, having that singular focus throughout your medical education.
I think it helps. I think healthcare in the United States is becoming more and more specialized, especially as we learn more about the diseases and the treatments or interventions become more complicated, maybe. Mm-hmm. So the more we learn, it's almost impossible to know everything about everything. So I think that's why we're seeing this trend towards hyper-specialization. So, I literally treat one disease. I can treat headache, and I can treat stroke, and I can treat peripheral neuropathy and seizures, but I love treating MS, and that's where I focus my efforts. I go to a conference every year in Europe that just all we talk about is MS, and I do most of my reading about MS, and there's just not enough time in the day for me to be reading about, epilepsy and the latest, clot retrieval device in stroke or what have you. So, yeah, at this point, I think it makes sense. If you want to be an expert,
Right.
There's a benefit to both. I think we need generalists for sure. We need good primary care doctors or generalists who know how to diagnose and who to pass the patient on to, or if they can treat it, great. So I think we need both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, it's interesting because actually my sister-in-law has MS, and she was diagnosed when she was like 9 years old. She was like really young case. Mm-hmm. And so it's been interesting to see her, go through different treatments. And there's been times that were like scary, like, hey, this is kind of experimental treatment. Like, if you take this, like these other really bad things could happen, but it's like, she's in her early 30s and has been dealing with it her whole life. And so it's like, whatever she can do to slow down the progression of it.
Right.
And so that's interesting. It's cool. I think that, we need people out there to specialize in certain things so that they can give, people hope, right? There's a lot of different illnesses and things out there that people don't even discover, right, until they're older, or a lot of doctors, generalists don't know, like, I've never seen this before, or they misdiagnose. But when you're a specialist, right, it's easier for you to identify things and get things early.
Definitely. You can see a general neurologist for MS, but it's hard there are 15 disease-modifying therapies for MS now, and knowing, which drug is the best for which patient, or how to transition from one drug to another safely, or what are the risks of this drug, what are the possible complications, what are the benefits, how risky is MS going untreated. These are things that, it's hard to know unless you're doing it day in and day out, and it's constantly changing. So, there's a lot.
Yeah. So after you finished school, were you like, all right, I'm just going to go work at a hospital, or, what was your grand scheme?
Right. So it's funny, I had lunch with a friend the other day, and she's like, I'm so excited you're starting your own practice because this is what you're meant to do. This is what you've always wanted to do. And I was like, oh, interesting that, she picked up on that just by knowing me. But I think it has always been in my head. Like, I've never been very conventional. I've always kind of carved my own path and done things my own way. And the general path is, you finish residency, you do your fellowship, and you most likely go work for a large hospital system. Mm-hmm. Especially now, large hospital systems are taking over. They're buying up all the small little practices. And then they actually end up raising their rates. And, as we know, our healthcare system's getting very expensive. But here I am, bucking the trends again and starting a private practice because I think we need it. I think patients are tired of a 15-minute visit with either their doctor or maybe a nurse practitioner or PA, and they're not necessarily creating a connection with their doctor, and they're not necessarily getting all of their issues addressed. And MS patients have a lot of issues. It's not just that they have MS. They've got trouble controlling their bladder, trouble controlling their bowels.
Double vision.
Double vision. They can't sleep. They usually have anxiety or depression. They've got extreme fatigue. There are cognition problems,
Right.
And so you can't do it in a 15-minute visit. And so I think, we need a new approach to the way we practice medicine in this country.
Yeah. So did you go start your own thing right out of school then?
No. Oh, no. So I'm in the process of opening my own MS center right now. Right after fellowship, I actually was looking for a job and, interviewed all over the Bay Area. I was out there and couldn't really find anything that fit. I got one job offer that was offering me 20% below the national average in salary, and they told me they were going to work me to death. I said, that sounds so fun.
Great
yes,
sales
sign
pitch.
me up. So I turned that one down, and then I got a job offer here in Denver. And with a small group, it was a 2-physician practice, general neurology. And I came out here in 2015 and worked with them for a couple of years and really built up my MS practice. I had about 300 MS patients there. Wow. Yeah, in just a couple of years. And I was new in town, so that was exciting. And that's when I really just thought, in order to do what I want to do and practice medicine in the way that I think it should be practiced, I'm going to have to go out on my own and take a leap of faith and just do it. So yeah, I thought I was going to do it in San Francisco. I actually went out there and did a little reconnaissance mission, checked out real estate, spoke to a bunch of neurologists, got the lay of the land in terms of insurance and big hospital systems, and realized it was probably going to be a losing game out in California. And decided that, I missed my patients here and I missed home, and moved back to Denver, and now I'm doing it here. So I'm opening the Colorado MS Center on April 1st.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So, is there a lot in doing that? Do you have to have certifications and all sort? I know what it takes to build a business as far as websites and branding and all this stuff. There's got to be a whole nother layer when it comes to opening up a medical practice.
Oh, it is so difficult. I can't even tell you. If you're going to be a practice that takes insurance, most people don't realize this, but the doctor has to contact each and every insurance company. So Anthem, Aetna, Cigna, you name it, Rocky Mountain Health Plan, whatever. I have to call each and every one of them and say, I want to be one of your in-network providers. And then it takes them 90 to 120 days to check out my credentials. And then they deliver a contract to me telling me how much they're willing to pay me per visit or per procedure. And then I can say, that doesn't look like enough for me to, run a practice. And we go into negotiations, and then we ultimately sign a contract.
Wow.
But you might do that with 20 different insurance companies. So that's a huge pain. And it takes forever. So,
how long have you been working on this? 90 days, 120 days. That's
Well, you can't do it until you have a business address. So I just signed a lease on office space about 3 weeks ago. So I literally just started my credentialing with insurance companies 3 weeks ago. And I'm only going to be accepting insurance at this point for infusions. So if people want to, if they're on a drug that is infused, like an IV in the arm, then we will definitely take insurance, and then we will also be accepting Medicare for all services. But yeah, it's it needs to change. Like, it'd be nice if, you could just go to any doctor you want and then submit your bill to your insurance, but the doctor doesn't necessarily have to have a contract with that insurer.
Yeah. Why is that? I mean, I work with a lot of different, medical companies and industries, and it seems like everyone has the same message of healthcare needs to change, and like, we need to think about things differently, and put the patient first, and all these other kind of things. And then, like, why doesn't anything change?
Well, the biggest lobbyists in our country are actually the health insurance companies. They spend more than any other lobbyists in the whole country. And I don't have my numbers with me, but I have looked up the data. And if you want to fact check me, there's a great book out that just came out called An American Sickness, where she does detail a lot of the numbers and the legislation that is passed. But basically, health insurance companies really run the whole game right now, and they determine how much everybody gets paid. And then second in line are the big hospital systems. Because they're so large, they actually have a lot of negotiating power with those insurance companies. So, for instance, let's say a health insurance company says they'll pay me $100 for a visit. And I'm like, oh, that's not very much, because I'm going to spend an hour with them and we're going to talk about 5 problems, and I'm really going to take care of my patient. They're like, well, too bad, you're solo, like, you have no negotiating power. Whereas if that insurance company goes to a big healthcare system like Sutter, which is a California system, Sutter says, no, you're going to pay us $400 for that visit. And the health insurance company may say, no, that's way too much. And they say, well, then, sorry, you don't have access to all 1,000 of our doctors. So it's a big game.
Yeah. So it's just like bureaucracy and just gaming the system, trying to make relationships. And
the bigger you are, the more power you have.
Right.
So that's why private practice has been dying. But I think patients now, hopefully, and what I'm hearing is patients want something more. They want more time with their doctor. They want a doctor who's going to partner with them and getting them into optimal health. And they're not going to get that through, using their insurance. Yeah. So I think we're gonna see a shift, and it's not going to be like an overnight change, but things are changing.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, because it's one of those frustrating things. Like, a lot of times as a patient, you feel like a number,
right?
And you feel like, like, do you really care about me? Or, because there's been times like, I went in, had some blood work done, and my triglycerides were kind of high. And instead of being like, hey, like, why don't you eat healthier and, like, maybe work out a little bit? They're like, here, let me just write you a prescription. I'm like, how come you don't tell me to, like, it's like, oh, they probably get a kickback for, like, writing that prescription, for whatever. And it's like this crazy system,
Okay, well, I will clear that up. Okay. There are no kickbacks good. That. But what happens is that doctor has been told, you need to see 30 patients a day in order for us to meet the bottom line. And so they do a really quick visit with you. And the fastest way to treat your hypertriglyceridemia is to write you a script.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have 10 minutes. Especially primary care doctors have no time. And believe me, the doctor does not want to practice this way. The doctor is being told from somebody higher up, you have to practice this way. You have to meet your numbers. You have to see this many patients a day. You have to make the hospital this much money. So I know everyone is hating on doctors, but it's like, they don't want to practice like this either. Like, we are all, cogs in a wheel in a system that, is not working really for the doctors or the patients. But no kickbacks for drugs.
Okay, that's good. I feel better now.
Yeah. I always try to prescribe generic if I can, if it's, for something like that. But, when you have time to spend with your patient, we are going to talk about diet. We're going to talk about, like, let's add in more veggies.
Yeah.
First step, just like you said, I loved what you said earlier of, like, baby steps, add in greens. I have a friend, she just finished her nutrition degree, and she said, Susan, here's what you got to do. Every meal needs to include something green, fat, protein, and fiber. She goes, if your plate has those 4 things on it, you've probably got a decently healthy plate in front of you. Mm-hmm. And she said, start with just 1 meal a day that meets those 4 criteria, and then, work up to a point where maybe all of your meals do. And I was like, that's great. And I did it, and it was so easy.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So opening your own deal, I mean, now you're the boss, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're the one in charge, being like, this is how we're going to do things.
I know. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever imagine in a million years that you would be here at this spot, like opening your own practice and, going down that hill?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it has been brewing for a long time of just, I would think, why is private practice dying? Like, I totally believe in it. I totally believe in that doctor-patient relationship and that long-term, continuity of care. Those are all things that I believe in. I believe in house calls. I believe in talking on the phone to your patient. I think those have been core values for me for a really long time. So yeah, I think I knew early on that I wouldn't be able to work for someone else for very long, or work for a hospital system telling me to see X number of patients a day. Like, it doesn't really align with who I am or what I value.
Yeah. So what's going to set you apart? What's going to make you different?
Yeah.
What's going to be the, the Colorado MS Center?
Yeah.
Like, what's going to be their MO?
Basically, I'm here now. I'm committed to Denver. I'm opening a practice. I'm here for the long haul. I've probably got another 20 to 30 years in me. So my goal is to establish really strong relationships with my patients. I do an initial visit with a brand new patient is usually 90 minutes. I've spent 2 hours and 45 minutes with a new patient. So I don't want to set the standard here.
Hey, everybody, go see Susan.
At least 90.
You could take up all her time.
No, but I think, people are complex. It's not just like, oh, you've got MS, great, let's put you on a drug. It's like, what's going on with your job? Are you stressed out? Do you have any support? Do you have a good group of friends does anybody know you have this disease? What symptoms are you having? What are you eating? Are you eating fast food and processed food every day? Do you sleep? Another great book I read this year was called Why We Sleep. Amazing, amazing, amazing book. It made me, I love diet. I love nutrition. But after reading that book, I almost felt like sleep is more important than diet.
Yeah.
They're both important.
They're very
Don't
important.
get me wrong. But yeah,
sleep is
I
crucial.
think what sets me apart is I'm going to go over that stuff in the first visit. I'm going to, not only am I going to talk about your MS and your symptoms and, the path that you've taken, but like, who are you and what do you need and what's going to make you feel better? And my goal is, clearly to, halt or slow down the MS, but also just to get you feeling good and enjoying life and having some joy in your life. So figuring out what that is. So that's one thing that's going to set me apart. Two, just really, instead of, everything's moving towards high tech. And I'm kind of, sure, I'm going to use technology, but I want to kind of bring it back to the old days. Like, like I said, I'll come to your house. Like, if you feel like you're exhausted because of your MS and you don't want to leave and you want to stay in your jammies, like, I am happy to visit you at your house. I think that's really different. Really, instead
it's
of
like old school.
It's old school.
It's that Nebraska way.
Yeah. Another cool book is Doc Susie. She was one of the very first doctors in Colorado in the late 1800s. She set up her own practice just outside of Winter Park. And she treated all of the railroad workers and like lumberjacks, and it's a cool book. But anyway, that and just so high touch. I don't know if people still use that word, but like yeah. I want to have a relationship. I want, like, my patients, they email me and say, "Hey, doc, I'm worried about this new tingling in my left leg." And it's like, "Well, come on in today. We're going to get you in. We're not going to make you wait 3 months, and it's all about, like, what can I do to take care of you and get you in the best shape possible."
So how do you manage your time, though? I mean, it's like, if you're being that personable,
yeah,
spending that time, like, how do you cater to the person who had an appointment?
Yeah. So I just schedule a long appointment for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you just know, like, all right, these guys are going to need 2 hours.
Yeah. So a new patient, we schedule a 90-minute visit.
Okay.
And then I usually leave a half an hour gap after that. So if we finish in 90, great. You know, I can work on my notes. I can communicate with their primary doctor what we've discovered today. You know, we can fill out some paperwork. Maybe they're starting a new medication. I have an amazing assistant who's really good at going over all the details with the patient, which I do as well. But yeah, it's just, you know, you have to make the time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's like, yeah, this isn't easy and it takes work, but if you want to do it right, you just have to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, why bother, you know, going to a 15-minute visit twice a year where all you hear is like, hey, is your drug working? Let's check your MRI. Okay, no new lesions. Perfect. See you in 6 months. You still have 6 other problems that nobody talked about that are still bothering you, and your quality of life is suffering because of it. No one's tuned up your diet. No one's talked to you about sleep. No one's talked to you about stress. No one got you to quit smoking. It's just, people aren't going to get better if we don't spend the time.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think it's really cool that you're saying it and then also doing it.
Thanks.
It's like healthcare needs a change, so it's going to start with me.
Right.
And if more people start operating like that, then you can make big impact and big change.
Yeah. I think it is a trend. I think more and more doctors are saying, I don't want to play a part in this system. It's broken. I don't feel good about what I do at the end of the day. You know, if you came in and said, I have high triglycerides, and I'm like, here's a drug. Like, do I feel really good about that? No, not at all. I don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So I think more and more doctors, I'm on a Facebook forum for private practice doctors, and I see this sentiment all the time of doctors who are just frustrated with the system and definitely want something different. So I think all doctors need to stick together and really start advocating for our patients and for ourselves. You know, how do we want to practice medicine? And, you know, we take an oath to do no harm, and, you know, that's harmful to just give you a drug.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So where do you see this thing going? I mean, what are your hopes and dreams, and, you know, what would you hope to achieve in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we're starting small, and just, you know, like taking the first chemistry class, starting small, building the practice. Ultimately, I would love to see it turn into a full-fledged, comprehensive MS center of excellence where you show up and everything you need is there, you know, from physical therapy to a psychologist who can do talk therapy to infusions, which we already have, you know, massage, acupuncture, you know, yoga and meditation, nutritionist on site. So just one-stop shopping. Another thing that we do is really working towards promoting community. So I started a support group about a year ago that is actually still up and running. It's being run by one of my patients right now. And I think we'll just let that one continue to run. But I want to do fun events. Like, let's do once a month we go to dinner, or we come in and we learn some, you know, pranayama, which is yogic breathing techniques to really calm the nervous system. Or we have craft night. I just want to, like, promote community. I think a lot of people feel isolated these days, and especially probably if you've got a chronic illness or something that causes some sort of a disability. So I just think it would be fun to get everybody together and do fun things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm even thinking like maybe a weekend away, like riding ATVs or something, you know, just.
You're a cool doctor.
Thanks.
It's like, yeah, that's right. Riding ATVs with my doctor this weekend. Like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, let's just break the mold.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you know, there's nothing like having community with people who understand what you're going through, right? And you know, especially having MS, all the different things. Like, you know, you can talk to somebody like, oh, I have MS, and then it's like, oh, wow, and then that person just thinks back to the person they knew growing up who had MS, was like in a wheelchair or something, and
totally.
But, you know, when you can relate to other people who are going through similar things or who are tired constantly or, you know, whatever it is, it's like, oh, wow, you feel comfort in that. And so I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely. And every case of MS is different. You know, some people you wouldn't even know, and other people are really struggling.
Yeah.
So everybody's different.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is some advice that you would give to a young person who's coming up that is interested maybe in the medical field or doing something in that arena? What kind of advice would you give them? Hindsight 2020,
Right.
Looking back.
I would say definitely read the book An American Sickness so that you really can wrap your head around what's going on with our healthcare system right now. I think it's still a noble pursuit. I think I would say definitely don't go into it thinking you're going to get rich, like major in finance if you want to get rich. But just go educate yourself. Talk to as many people as you can. That's one thing. You can read books and everything, but talking to people, talking to doctors, talking to, anyone, and, hospital administrators, nurses, talking to people, getting their experiences, making sure it's really what you want to do. Also, don't pursue it unless you're passionate about it. If you're doing it because your parents want you to do it, or you feel you're unworthy in this world and that's, what's propelling you to get this advanced degree. I don't know that that's necessarily the right reason. I mean, I think all of us struggle with that to some degree of wanting to prove ourselves, and that's fine. But just make sure you're going into it for the right reasons, because it's not easy anymore. And it's there are a lot of hurdles, and the doctors have lost a lot of their autonomy. So just educate yourself. But read that book, I would say.
Yeah.
And then if after all that you want to become a doctor, then just you got to get good grades. You've got to do community service, so lots of volunteer work. Ideally, you've done some research. So, reach out to local hospitals that are doing research where you could be a research assistant. Letters of recommendation are so important. Make sure you get really good letters from influential people who have committed to you to write a really positive letter, and then go for it. And just, we all have fear, but, let the fear come in and then just go, well, thanks for coming, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. But, don't be stupid, but just, take it in, but don't let fear guide your life.
Right.
Go with what you're passionate about, and let that guide your life. And, the fears are going to creep in here and there, but that's just your ego getting in the way. And, if you're passionate and you really have a vision for what you want to do, then go for it.
Yeah. Well, and it's never too late.
Exactly.
It's never too late.
Right.
That's what I get a sense of. It's essentially like your second life here that you started your career in this world.
I was not an MD until I was almost 38 years old. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's never too late. And someone told me once when I was debating, I was like, should I go to med school or should I not? And they're like, listen, you're going to be 38 and a doctor, or you're going to be 38 and not a doctor. So
when you say it like that, it makes it sound okay.
Might as well do it, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about you recommended several different books.
I know, I love to read.
That we need to go out and read, which I love that.
Yeah.
Were there any books other than the ones you mentioned that made an impact in your life, or that encouraged you or motivated you, or anything like that?
Oh, so many. About 6 years ago, I read a book by my yoga teacher, Rod Stryker, called The 4 Desires. And it is all about finding your purpose in life and creating a life that gives you joy. And in finding your purpose, you can share that with the world. And I read that book, and it was a total game changer. I mean, it blew my mind. After I read the book, I ended up finding him. He wasn't my teacher at that point. He lives up in Carbondale, and I went up there and did a 5-day training based on the book. So the training was called The 4 Desires. And it was, whoa, like I just got the chills. Like it was transformational.
Yeah. Totally
transformed my whole life. Yeah, and I developed a daily meditation practice after that, and wasn't afraid to be me, wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. It was pretty life-changing. So I love that book.
Nice.
And then interestingly, this past year I read, have you read You Are a Badass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
She's so funny, and I really, really like her book. And but she brings in a lot of stuff that Rod Stryker spoke about in his book, and he brings in ancient teaching. So it's not like he invented all of this. He just compiled it and put it in a nicely readable format, and created a workbook and a path to kind of go through it. Because you can read all you want, but it's really about practice. Practice,
taking action,
doing it. So you can read about meditating. Oh, that sounds neat. Or you can read about pranayama, which are those breathing exercises. You're not going to get the benefit unless you actually do it, and you do it consistently. And so that reading the book, going to the 5-day training, and then implementing all of these practices on a daily basis has profoundly changed my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I like those books.
That's great. Yeah. What about as far as like business, opening your own business, starting your own thing, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it is terrifying.
To say the least.
Yeah. Learn as much as you can from people who have done it before you. I try to do a lot of things on my own because I can pick up on things, but at some point I hit a wall and I go, you know what? I do not know how to do medical billing. I need to find a biller, and so then you reach out to your network and you find a biller. And then, I do not know how to do this, so I'm going to hire somebody to do it. Like, you can't do everything.
Or I can code a website, but should I code my own website?
So I actually hired someone to help me get it going, and I watched her do a lot of stuff. And then it kind of reignited the flame in me to do it. So then I played with it and tweaked it, and we got a website up last week, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing about starting a business is, you need to reach out and use the expertise of other people who have done it. Because sure, I can do all of my insurance contracts myself. It would probably take me like 10 hours each, or I can hire a biller and he or she can get it done in probably 15 minutes because they've done it a million times. So, that's the beauty of an expert.
Right. Yeah.
There's no trial and error. There's no making mistakes. It's just like, oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
Done. And then, get a good CPA.
Yes.
Get a good lawyer. All these people who can guide you. The problem is it costs money. When you start a business, you got to lay down some cash in order to get the thing off the ground. And then you hope and pray that
the baby grows and pays you back.
If you build it, they will come. So that's
an interesting fact that a lot of people don't think about when you have a private practice, right? It really is like you're providing a service to people, and if you provide a good service with great customer service, hopefully those people will keep coming back and recommend their friends or people that they know.
Right.
And so it just continues to grow.
Exactly. So. And that's how I hope this medical practice really takes off, is via word of mouth and quality, and just hearing about the type of service that we provide, rather than like just going after social media and all that. I mean, I'm going to do some of that, but I don't know if that's really where I'm going to, see the most return on investment.
Yeah.
For this type of practice.
Right,
I think some businesses, that targeted social media marketing is the best.
Right.
But I think people too are also, they're craving community. They want real live events. They want to talk to people. Like, they don't want to spend hours on Facebook and Instagram anymore. Don't you feel like people are just getting over it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because as a, business owner and somebody who has to spend a lot of time on social media, I don't really spend a lot of time on social media.
Yeah.
Because for me, I think about what could I be doing instead of this?
Right.
Right. Can I be educating myself? Can I be, taking care of my health at the gym or something like that? Like if I'm sitting there scrolling for 30, 45 minutes, like that's my life that is disappearing, like that I can't ever get back, know? And so it's kind of a catch-22 because, to some extent I have to show that my business is savvy and that I can, manage digital marketing and all these other kind of things. Yeah. But on the same token, I I don't want to waste my time or life on social media.
Right. Yeah. It's a great medium.
Yeah.
You know, we need to use it where it's appropriate, and just like using technology in healthcare, you know, use it where it's appropriate and discard it where it's not.
Yeah. What is your let's talk about some quick personal stuff. Like, what's your favorite food?
Chocolate.
My wife's favorite food is chocolate too.
I found my mom and I were going through old boxes of papers from when I was like in first grade. And it's like, what's your favorite food? Chocolate. What's your favorite, whatever, chocolate cake? What's your favorite something else? Chocolate ice cream. I was like, oh, yeah. So
it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. And I was just in Mexico yesterday, and I ended up buying a bunch of raw cacao.
Oh, nice.
Which is, you know, the latest trend. You can add it to your smoothies, or you can make, you know, drinks.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of, you know,
good benefits,
medicinal value.
Yeah.
I'm getting really into herbalism too, learning the value of certain herbs. You know, like feverfew, for instance, can be a migraine preventative. Which, you know, I've always prescribed feverfew, but I didn't really understand, you know, the mechanism behind it. But plant medicine is fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you know, hardly any side effects.
Yeah. So I love chocolate. But yeah. I mean, I have a lot. I love Thai food.
Okay.
I love Italian food.
Ooh.
I love food.
Yeah, of course. It's like, okay, how do I love food and be healthy at the same time?
I love to eat.
What about your first car? Do you remember your first car?
Oh, yes. It was a Volkswagen Scirocco.
Whoa.
Do you remember those?
No,
You're too
don't.
Young. Gosh darn it.
The Scirocco sounds cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
And safety. Volkswagen's always, you know.
It was cool. It had leather seats. It had like a really nice stereo system. It was decently fast. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
cool.
then what about music? You know, what kind of music are you into? Because you said you like going to concerts and things like that.
It's funny because, well, I love music and I love all sorts of music. I, you know,
Gregorian chants, is that your?
No, but I'd be down. So I told you I was in San Francisco from like 95 to 06.
Yeah.
And got really into like house music. So I love, you know, good Chicago house, Detroit house.
Okay.
Anything just with a really good beat.
That's
but
awesome.
then on the flip side, I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan.
Okay.
Which I know everyone thinks is so lame, but like I saw Dave Matthews play on the sidewalk in Boulder in like 1993.
Before he really made it.
Oh yeah. And then he filmed one of his first videos at the Fox Theater, and I was there. And I've seen him at least, I don't know, 20, 30 times. Every time he comes to town, I go see Dave.
That's awesome.
And I've met him too. So,
okay. So there's some deep-rooted reasons why you like him.
Yeah, but I love classic rock. I love all sorts of music.
That's awesome. The house thing. I just imagine pulling up to you on this, looking over, and then it's just like, it's like, what?
Oh yeah.
That's how my mother-in-law. The first time I got into her car, she was like listening to like Metallica or something. I was like, Lori, what are you listening to Nickelback and Metallica for? Yeah, it's awesome.
And in high school, I was really into new wave. You know, so like Bauhaus and Joy Division and The Cure and Depeche Mode, and I still love all that. So yeah, I anything experimental, like I don't know. Yeah.
That's cool.
Anything cool and I don't know. There's a new song by Toro y Moi that I love called Freelance. That's like my latest favorite song.
Oh, nice.
You know, when you're a kid and you're like, what's your favorite song?
Yeah, we do summer jams in our house, you know. Like usually like every year there's like a summer jam. You know, it's like, Better
really?
Now by Post Malone or something, you know.
Ooh, we'll have to share playlists.
Yeah, there you go. I Spotify.
Okay.
Share my playlist.
I love like, well, in the old days when we used to just keep all our music on MP3s. Remember that, like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
My friends and I would get together with our external hard drives and be like, just swap them out. Like I would take all your music and you would take all mine. But now it's like nobody even has any physical music anymore.
No. Well, yeah, and even further back, I had a mini disc player.
Oh, me too.
And we used to swap. Did you really?
In my bedroom when I was a kid.
That's
and
awesome.
And I had Hotel California, Eagles, Hotel California.
Just playing.
And Meatloaf on 8-track.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah.
I didn't have 8-track. We had an 8-track player in my grandpa's car, and I remember he had a stack of 8-tracks, and I used to be like, "Oh, this is awesome!" You know,
you could only choose one of 4 songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was still pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah. I hear, and I have a record player at home. I have all my grandpa's old jazz records.
Oh,
he was
cool.
An amazing pianist.
Really?
Yeah, so I've got, I don't have all of them, but I have a lot of his old records. Yeah, it's fun to play records.
Yeah, we always bust out the record player during Christmas, you know, and we play all the classics, Bing Crosby and Nat King Cole. It's very, very like warm and fuzzy.
It is.
It's funny whenever my kids hear like any music from like the 40s or 30s or whatever, they're like, "Why are you playing Christmas music?" I'm like, "This isn't Christmas music. It's just got that nostalgic sound to it, you know."
It's fun playing records. The only bummer is that after like 5 minutes, you have to flip it over.
Yeah.
I feel like they go through so quickly.
They do. That's so true. Yeah. There's like 3 or 4 songs per side.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
This is why I just wanted my Spotify playlist. Right. What about pets? You into pets? You got animals?
I have a cat.
Okay.
My friends out there all know my cat, Pablo.
Pablo.
He's amazing.
Sounds amazing.
He's so sweet, and he loves to cuddle, and he's unlike any other cat ever. Like when I open the door, he runs to the living room and lays on his back because he wants a belly rub.
Pablo.
And then he like sleeps right on my face every night.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's really cute.
That's awesome.
He's 14 though, so I get worried every day that
just get a cat looks exactly like him.
I'm gonna clone him.
Yeah. Oh, you could. Yeah, there's that too.
I'm saving my money.
There you go. The clone cat, Pablo Deuce. That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming by and chatting with us. And, I think it's always beneficial to hear people's stories, because so many times we think, we see somebody and we put them on this pedestal of like, oh, they're just smarter, or they just had luckier breaks, or, they make excuses why they themselves can't do it. But when we hear people's story, it really reveals to us that, wow, like all she did was walk through doors as they opened, and she worked hard, and she stayed motivated, and she didn't give up, and, she kept pursuing her dreams. And so I think that's always just really encouraging. And, I just hope that if you're listening to this episode or watching it on Facebook, that it was an encouragement to you, and that you took something away, and that you go and make a difference in your life and in this world. So, Susan, thank you so much. And I wish you all the best with your new business and medical practice.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right.